Chapter 17. Moth to Flame. The first moth was the size of a dinner plate. It drifted in from the trees just after sunset, silent as fog, its wings pulsing with patterns that didn't match anything found in a field guide. It hovered for a long moment on the far edge of the firelight, the strange velvet shimmer of its wings catching the glow. Then it retreated back into the dark. Everyone saw it. No one spoke. That night, no one slept well. The five of them had hiked 6 miles off the marked trail into a ravine known only to serious backpackers and a few locals. The plan was simple: 3 days off-grid, camp near the base of a granite bluff, eat badly cooked food, and laugh until their voices cracked. Jason and Mara were the experienced pair, dating for over a year, always chasing the next remote campsite. Kenny was the joker, loud and harmless, with a cheap backpack full of cheap beer and a relentless need to poke fun at everything. Talia was quiet, new to the group, invited by Jason after meeting her through a climbing meetup. And Dorian was last minute, Mara's cousin, a city guy with expensive boots and no real idea what he was doing. The day hike had gone smoothly. The weather was crisp and dry, with an eerie stillness to the trees that Jason chalked up to being far from civilization. At the campsite, they set up tents in a half circle around the fire pit, surrounded by low brush and tall pines. Kenny cracked jokes while burning sausages over the flame, the smoke trailing straight up without any wind to scatter it. Dorian complained about the hard ground and laughed at his own whining. Everything felt normal until the first moth arrived. After it vanished into the woods, the group fell into a strange silence. Jason finally said it must have been a Luna moth, just a big one, but no one really believed it. Its wings hadn't moved like a Luna's. They hadn't even flapped. They had rippled like sails catching invisible currents. Talia broke the tension by suggesting it was a drone, some weird nature cam project. That gave them just enough comfort to settle in, but not enough to sleep deeply. In the middle of the night, Mara sat bolt upright in her tent, heart hammering. There had been a sound. Not footsteps, not a branch breaking. A flutter. Slow and heavy, like thick paper being dragged through the air. She unzipped the tent flap and peeked out. The fire had burned low to embers. In its faint glow, she saw something move across the edge of camp. It wasn't walking. It hovered. Wings wider than her outstretched arms. A massive body, soft and bulbous, drifting just above the forest floor. Its eyes reflected a dull orange light, but they were not like insect eyes. They were segmented, but wet, glistening, too expressive. The thing circled the camp once, then vanished into the trees again. In the morning, Mara didn't tell anyone. Jason was boiling water for oatmeal. Kenny and Dorian were down at the stream refilling bottles. Talia sat cross-legged chewing a granola bar, staring into the embers like she was trying to remember a dream she didn't like. They ate in silence. No jokes, no stories. The woods were quiet again. Around mid-morning, they found the first cocoon. It was wrapped around the trunk of a small tree 10 feet off the ground, roughly the size of a person. The silk was thicker than spiderweb, more like braided sinew, pale gray with iridescent streaks. Something inside it twitched slowly, like a body rolling in sleep. Jason moved forward and reached up. "Don't," Mara said, grabbing his wrist. Jason hesitated. "It could be a chrysalis, maybe something rare. Or maybe it's not our business." Kenny walked up behind them, saw it, and let out a low whistle. "Looks like the tree's growing a tumor." Dorian laughed, but it was hollow. "Nature is metal, huh?"
They left it there and kept hiking up the ridge, hoping for a clearer view of the valley. For the rest of the day, they said very little. Talia hummed under her breath now and then, strange, broken melodies with no rhythm or key. Jason tried to steer the group back to normalcy by planning a side trail for the next day, but no one bit. When they returned to camp in the late afternoon, another cocoon had appeared, this one lower, near the fire pit, half hidden by moss. Smaller, no bigger than a dog, but with the same glistening shell. That night, Jason insisted they keep the fire higher. "I think they like the light," he said. "That's why we're keeping it going?" Dorian asked, confused. Jason shook his head. "No, that's why we're not letting it go out." As dusk fell, the moths came again. This time, there were 3. They circled the camp in wide, lazy arcs, each one slightly different. One with dark purple wings, another with blue that shimmered like oil. Their bodies left faint trails behind them, a sparkling mist that hung in the air for several seconds before vanishing. Their flight made no sound, but their presence did. The crackle of the fire changed when they passed, dropping into sub-bass tones. Talia whispered something in a language no one recognized, her eyes unfocused. Kenny sat against a log and drank without speaking. He didn't even notice the moth that hovered behind him, just inches from his neck, its wings twitching faintly. Mara moved to warn him, but the moth drifted away before she could speak. No one slept. Jason kept watch first, then Mara, then Dorian. By sunrise, Talia was gone. Her tent was still zipped from the inside. Inside it, her sleeping bag was torn open from beneath. The foam pad beneath her had been shredded, the floor of the tent soaked with a thick, clear fluid that smelt faintly like citrus and rot. Small, glimmering scales coated the fabric like dust. Mara stepped back and vomited. Jason checked for tracks, but found none. "Did she leave on her own?" Dorian asked. "No," Jason said. "Something took her, or she changed." The word hung in the air like smoke. None of them said it, but they were thinking the same thing. The cocoon. Kenny stared at the treetops, eyes bloodshot. "They're above us right now, watching, waiting." Mara turned to him. "What?" He pointed up. They looked. There were dozens, high in the canopy, clinging to branches, wings pressed flat, motionless, but there. Jason said, "We need to go." They broke camp quickly. No food, no coffee, just packed everything into their bags and moved. Jason led them back the way they came, retracing steps, but the landscape had shifted. Trails bent in strange directions. Familiar trees were gone. Where there had been dry ground, now soft moss carpeted the path. Cocoon shapes hung between trunks, some low to the ground, others far above. One was split open, a wet trail leading away from it into the brush. They walked all day without seeing another person. At sunset, Kenny collapsed. He sat down against a rock and didn't move. "I can hear them. They're inside my head," he said. Dorian knelt next to him. "You're just dehydrated. You need water." Kenny shook his head. "They're singing." Jason and Mara argued whether to stop for the night or keep moving. It was dangerous to be out after dark, but they were exhausted, too tired to think. Eventually, they stopped in a narrow clearing near a dry creek bed. They built a small fire. No one spoke.
The moths arrived just after twilight. 5 this time. They circled closer now, dipping between the tents, flickering in the firelight. One of them landed on a tree trunk just feet away, its wings curling inward, revealing a soft, pulsing underbelly. It was covered in tiny holes like gills, all opening and closing in slow rhythm. Kenny walked toward it. Mara shouted. Jason grabbed him. Kenny screamed and flailed, fighting to get free. "They need me," he shouted. "They're making me better." His skin was already changing, pale, patchy, and flaking. Silvery dust drifted from his arms. He bled from his eyes. His teeth looked too sharp. Jason held him down. Beneath the weight of 2 people, Kenny convulsed once, then went still. His chest rose and fell, but his eyes stared into nothing. The moth on the tree opened its wings and rose silently into the night. The fire died sometime after midnight. No one dared to stoke it. Jason and Mara sat back to back, watching the tree line, trying not to blink too long. Kenny lay wrapped in a blanket, unmoving except for slow, ragged breaths. Dorian kept pacing, his flashlight flicking over the trees every few seconds. Each time, the light caught something reflective high above. Eyes, wings, soft movement in the branches. The moths were still there, perched, not attacking, but watching. Mara whispered, "We need to decide what to do with him." Jason didn't answer. "He's changing, Jason. You saw it. His skin isn't just flaking, it's shedding." "I know," Jason said. "I think the cocoon we saw wasn't some random moth thing. It was someone, one of us, one of the ones who came before." Jason exhaled slowly. "Talia." Mara didn't say it, but her silence said enough. At dawn, the sky looked wrong. It had taken on a faint pinkish hue that deepened to violet near the horizon. The clouds drifted in perfect symmetry. Birds were gone. Insects had stopped buzzing. The air was heavy, not with moisture, but something denser. Every breath felt like pulling cotton through your lungs. Kenny began muttering under the blanket. His voice was low, rhythmic, almost musical. His face was pale, drawn, but his lips were twitching as if remembering a song. Jason leaned in and froze. The words were not in English, not in any language he had ever heard, but they repeated perfectly, same tone, same pitch, as if recited from a recording burned into his brain. Jason stepped back. Mara pulled her pack on. "We're leaving," she said. "We can't carry him," Dorian said. "We're not carrying him." Jason looked up sharply. Mara met his eyes. "We stay, we die." Kenny stopped muttering and opened his eyes. They were glassy now, no longer red, but gray with a strange shimmer behind them. He smiled. "I can hear them so clearly now. They're close." Jason crouched in front of him. "What do they want?" "To finish. To be complete. Mara turned away. They left him there, wrapped in the blanket. As they hiked, Jason kept glancing back until the trees swallowed him from view. By midday, the moths had followed. They didn't circle this time. They glided above the canopy, just barely visible, keeping pace as the group moved through thicker brush. Dorian kept swatting at the air, convinced they were too close to see, that they were touching his neck, his ears. He moved faster than the others, driven by panic. They reached a stream with wide, flat stones and cold water that sparkled unnaturally in the dim light. Dorian stepped into the middle, crouched, and splashed water on his face. When he looked down, he screamed. His reflection was wrong, not distorted, replaced. The man staring back at him from the surface of the stream was pale, hairless, with sunken cheeks and 2 dark rings around his eyes. Thin antennae curled from his forehead, twitching with every breath. The mouth was too wide, the teeth too narrow and white. Dorian stumbled back and slipped, landing in the water. Jason rushed to help, pulling him to the bank. Dorian clawed at his own arms, then his scalp. "It's inside me. It's under my skin. It's waiting to come out." His forearms were raw from scratching. Blood ran in thin rivulets. Beneath the torn flesh, something shimmered. Tiny, fine scales like dust, glowing faintly in the shadows. Mara pulled Jason aside. "We have to leave him. We already left one. You want to carry him when he changes? You want him turning into whatever the hell Kenny is becoming while he sleeps next to us?" Jason didn't argue. When they moved again, Dorian followed, muttering to himself, not even aware he had stopped bleeding. The sun set early, or maybe the sky just darkened faster. By the time they found a narrow ridge to rest on, Mara had stopped trying to calculate direction. Her compass spun slowly in her palm, like it had forgotten north. They didn't light a fire, no tents. They sat against a low boulder, knees pulled up, waiting for the moths to come again. They didn't have to wait long. Just after dark, they arrived. Dozens. Their wings glowed faintly now, emitting a soft green-blue light. No 2 were the same. One had hooked wings like a bat, another had long tails like ribbons. One hovered near Dorian and let a single drop of fluid fall from its body, landing on his shoulder. Dorian didn't move. Jason tried to drag him away, but Dorian jerked free, his mouth open wide, breathing faster. "It's not pain, it's something else." Mara turned away and sat with her back to them both. Jason crouched next to her. "We're almost out. If we keep moving in the morning." "You don't believe that," she said. He didn't. He sat beside her in silence, listening. The moths didn't attack. They waited. At some point, Dorian began to hum, not a tune, but a pattern, the same language Kenny had used, the same one Talia had muttered. Jason wanted to ask him what the words meant, but when he turned to look, Dorian was gone. They found him in the morning, hanging from a tree. Not by rope, by silk. His body was half cocooned, the threads grown from his own skin, wrapping slowly, organically. His legs dangled, twitching once every few seconds. His eyes were open, looking down at them. Jason moved to cut him down, but Mara held him back. "He's not in there anymore." Jason shook his head. "We don't know that." "We do," she said. "We've known since the first night." They ran again. No water, no food. No trail. The woods grew thicker, darker. The moths followed, ever present now, fluttering just out of reach. Their glow came in pulses, their bodies sang without sound, their presence warping the quiet into a hum that filled ears and bones alike. They found a clearing by accident, a wide, flat circle of bare earth, maybe 30 feet across. No moss, no brush, just scorched soil and fragments of clothing. Dozens of small, perfect piles. Shirts, boots, a single metal belt buckle half melted into the dirt. Jason stopped at the edge. Mara looked around. "What is this?" He knelt and picked up a necklace, a silver chain burnt at one end. He held it up and read the charm. It was Talia's. Jason let it fall. Then they heard it, a flutter, louder than before, heavier, from above. They turned their eyes skyward. One of the moths was descending, much larger than the others. Its wingspan was wider than the clearing itself, and its body trailed filaments of silk like streamers. It landed in total silence, touching down in the center of the clearing. It had a human face, partially. Mara stepped back, mouth open. The face was composed of familiar features. Jason saw Talia's jawline, Kenny's cheekbones, Dorian's eyes, but wrong, too symmetrical, too serene. It opened its wings. The light pulsed outward in waves. Mara screamed and dropped to her knees. Jason turned to run, but the moth was already behind him. They hadn't seen it move. It had just appeared, hovering inches above the ground. The face leaned in, eyes unblinking. Its mouth opened. Inside were rows of tiny needle-like tongues flickering like insect limbs, each one tipped with barbs. A soft spray of golden dust burst from its wings, coating Jason's face and chest. His vision blurred. He tried to scream, but his throat was full of warmth. Then everything went dark. Jason woke up to daylight and silence. He was lying on the forest floor, body slick with dew, his clothes damp and dusted in a pale gold powder that glistened faintly in the morning light. The air smelled sweet, unnaturally so, like rotting fruit left too long in the sun. His lips were cracked, his limbs ached, his eyes refused to focus. He sat up slowly. The world swam. The clearing was empty. The ground where the enormous moth had stood was blackened and smooth, like something had burned the earth without fire. There were faint lines in the dirt, spiral patterns etched into the soil. Jason blinked against the light and realized the patterns pulsed slightly, as though the land itself was breathing. He staggered to his feet and turned in a slow circle. No tents, no gear, no Mara. "Mara?" he called. His voice came out dry and cracked. "Mara!"
Nothing. He turned toward the trees. The moths were still there, dozens clinging to the trunks like leaves, wings folded, unmoving. Their eyes tracked him, each one glowing faintly like embers buried in ash. One of them dropped a tendril from its underbelly, and it touched the ground, leaving a slick line of mucus as it withdrew. He started walking, unsure of direction, unsure of anything beyond the need to move. His body burned with every step. The ache wasn't just soreness, it was something deeper. His bones felt too light. His skin crawled with a sensation like static under the flesh, like thousands of hairs trying to turn inward. He stopped at the edge of a shallow stream, the same one from the day before, or maybe a different one. It was hard to tell. He leaned over and stared into the water. The reflection was almost his. His face was thinner, his cheeks drawn. His skin had taken on a faint shimmer and his eyes were too clear, the pupils smaller than normal. He reached up to his neck and ran his fingers along a series of soft ridges that hadn't been there before. They pulsed slightly under his touch. He backed away from the water, heart pounding. From deeper in the forest, something screamed. Not a human sound, not an animal. It was sharp and high, followed by a wet, dragging noise. Jason turned and ran. He didn't know where he was going. He only knew the sound was behind him, and he didn't want to be anywhere near it. The trees blurred past. Branches clawed at his arms. The moths above him took flight, wings brushing against the canopy with dry, papery flaps. One of them dropped lower, tracking him. He ducked under a fallen log and kept running, lungs burning, the golden dust still clinging to the inside of his nose and mouth. Eventually he stumbled into another clearing, smaller this time. The ground here was covered in discarded belongings. A rusted thermos, a torn backpack, a child's shoe, a necklace tangled in moss. He dropped to his knees, gasping. Something moved near the edge of the clearing. He froze. Mara stepped out from behind a tree. Her hair was tangled. Her clothes were soaked. Her eyes were wild. "Mara?" Jason whispered. She looked at him, then past him. Her gaze drifted over the trees, the moths, the sky. Then her eyes returned to him, and she blinked slowly like recognizing someone from a dream. "You're changing," she said. Jason opened his mouth, but no sound came. "So am I," she added. She pulled up her sleeve. Her arm was covered in pale green scales that shimmered like fish skin. Between her fingers, thin membranes had begun to form, delicate and webbed. She flexed her hand and the webbing shifted like wet silk. Jason stumbled back. "How?" "They're inside us. They mark you first, then they wait. You dream, and they grow." "You saw them too," he said. She nodded. "They showed me something, in the light. They want to be us, not just imitate, not just copy. They want to merge." Jason shivered. His spine felt wrong, his posture unnatural. He realized he had been leaning forward, weight distributed differently, like something in him had restructured while he slept. Mara stepped closer. "We don't have long." "Then we fight it." Mara smiled sadly. "I think it's already done." He grabbed her wrist. "We can't let it finish." She looked down at his hand. Where his skin touched hers, their flesh began to glow faintly. A lattice of thin veins pulsed beneath the surface, golden and luminous. "We're conduits now," she said. "We're not supposed to resist." Jason turned away. "I'm not letting it finish."
They began walking, choosing no path, just moving to keep the blood flowing, to hold on to whatever humanity was left. Every direction looked the same, but Jason refused to stop. Mara followed, sometimes behind, sometimes ahead, eyes always scanning the sky. The moths moved with them, silent, patient. That night they made no fire. They huddled in the roots of an old tree, listening to the forest breathe. Jason's dreams were filled with spirals, tunnels made of wing scales, a heartbeat that was not his own, voices singing in ultraviolet patterns. When he woke, Mara was standing 20 feet away. She was speaking softly to one of the moths. It hovered in front of her, wings twitching, releasing fine threads of golden light. Her arms were raised, her eyes wide and vacant. Jason crawled toward her and tackled her to the ground. She fought him at first, limbs lashing out with unnatural strength. Then she went limp. "What were you doing?" he demanded. Her voice was quiet. "Listening. You can't. They're offering us peace. It's not peace, it's erasure." He stood and looked up. The largest of the moths was drifting through the trees again, body glowing faintly. It pulsed with each movement, the light synchronized with Jason's heartbeat. He could feel it now, inside his chest. They walked again the next day, following the sound of running water, hoping it would lead to a road or trail. Instead, it brought them to a massive tree, ancient and hollowed, its trunk as wide as a cabin. Around its base were more cocoons, dozens, some split open, some still pulsing. One of them twitched. Jason stepped closer. Inside was a person, or what was left of one. The face was slack, half melted, with skin that shimmered like wet wax. The eyes opened just barely and met his. Then it whispered. Jason leaned in. It was Kenny's voice. "They live through us. They don't need hosts. They need homes." Jason staggered back. Mara was already walking toward another cocoon. Inside it was Talia. Her skin was translucent, glowing from within. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Her eyes tracked Jason as he approached. She blinked once, slowly. Then the cocoon split. The sound was soft, wet. Talia stepped out. Her body was perfect, human, clean, unscarred, but wrong. Every movement was deliberate, measured. Her pupils had no irises. Her voice echoed without volume. "We are whole now." Mara reached out to her. Jason pulled her back. The moths descended again. This time they did not hover. They landed. All around them, wings folding inward, bodies pulsing with heat and light. The forest filled with the hum of transformation. Jason screamed. Mara joined him, but no one heard them. Except the moths. Jason could feel his skin twitching, his blood vibrating to a rhythm that didn't belong to him. The moths were no longer just watching, no longer curious. They were activating something inside him, something that had been growing since the first night. It was in his lungs, in his spine, in the space behind his eyes. Every step he took was too light, like the earth was losing its grip on him. Mara stood inches away from Talia, face slack, eyes glossy. Talia's body glowed softly, not with the glimmer of life, but with the cold light of adaptation. She didn't speak anymore. Her mouth moved in slow, pulsing patterns, emitting a frequency only the moths could hear. The wings around the clearing beat in synchronized patterns. Dust swirled through the air like pollen, golden and warm. Jason turned and ran. He didn't call Mara's name. He knew she would not follow. Her choice had been made, or maybe it had been made for her. He stumbled through the trees, coughing up flecks of gold, his hands clutching at his own skin as it rippled beneath his fingers. Veins bulged in strange new places. His nails were beginning to curl backward. A thin, transparent membrane had formed across part of his left eye, warping the light. He crashed through brush, branches tearing at his arms and face, and broke through to a ridge he didn't recognize. In the distance, he saw a flash of light that wasn't moonlight or bioluminescent wings. It was white and artificial, a camp lantern, a structure, maybe a road. He moved toward it like a man drowning. Halfway there, something dropped in front of him, one of the smaller moths, no bigger than a child. Its wings were ragged, its body pulsing weakly. It hovered for a second, then dropped to the ground, twitched, and lay still. Jason stepped around it, but another one dropped, this one landing on his shoulder, its tiny limbs gripping the torn fabric of his shirt. It pressed its soft underbelly against his collarbone, and warmth bloomed through his chest. He screamed and tore it free, flinging it against a tree where it splattered like a wet balloon. Fluid sprayed across his face and neck. It burned, not like acid, but like heat, a growing internal pressure. He fell to his knees and vomited. It wasn't food that came up, it was gold dust and strands of silk gummed together in a sticky coil. He coughed again, blood seeping from his nose. His chest seized, his fingers twitched on their own. A voice spoke behind him. Not words, not human, but he understood it. "Stop running." He turned, expecting Talia or Mara or some fusion of both, but what he saw was something larger, one of the great moths. Its body was upright, more vertical now, its wings furled around its form like a robe. From its face emerged delicate tendrils, not antennae, but fingers. They reached for him, curling toward his face. "You are not separate," the voice said again, not aloud, but in his spine. "You are us. We are whole when you surrender." He clutched his head and forced himself upright. Blood dripped from his ears. His bones popped as he moved. Something had grown along his spine, a long, thin ridge, flexible and warm. "I am not yours," he said aloud. The moth didn't retreat. Jason turned and kept moving. Every step brought fire through his joints. His muscles were wrong now, leaner, tighter, more efficient. He could hear his heartbeat shifting, slowing, matching the moths around him. At last he stumbled into a clearing lit by floodlights, a ranger station, a real one. He recognized the makeshift radio tower, the fenced perimeter, the steel shed with 2 quads parked beside it. He screamed for help, collapsed at the fence, and blacked out. When he woke, he was in a sterile white room with metal walls and humming vents. He lay on a cot. IV lines ran into his arm. A machine beside him beeped quietly. A man in uniform sat across from him. Not a ranger, a government suit, black tie, close-cropped hair, no insignia. His hands were clasped over a leather folder. "You were lucky," the man said. Jason tried to speak. His voice was a rasp. "You were found crawling past our perimeter, muttering in a language we've heard before. You were covered in insect fluids, exhaling spores." Jason coughed. "Where am I?"
Quarantine, northern sector, 2 miles south of Black Ridge Basin. Jason closed his eyes. "The moths, the cocoons, they're real." The man nodded once. "They are, and they are expanding." Jason's chest ached. He reached up and touched the back of his neck. The ridge was still there, warm, thrumming. "They took the others," he said. "Mara, Talia, Kenny." "I know," the man said. "We tracked the swarm 3 days ago. Lost signal after dusk. Your group went off trail near Sector 4. "They're changing people, replacing them." "No, they're not replacing us. They're enhancing us." Jason's eyes snapped open. "What?" The man stood and walked to a wall panel. He pressed a button. A window darkened, then cleared, revealing the next room. Inside stood Mara. Her body had completed the change. Her skin was smooth, pale with faint silver veins. Her arms bore soft iridescent webbing between her fingers. Her pupils were vertical slits, and thin antennae curled from her temples like hair. She smiled at him through the glass. "She was recovered 2 days ago. She's been very cooperative." Jason backed away. "We've been studying this for years. These organisms aren't invaders, they're catalysts. They respond to firelight, to proximity, to desire." "You're letting it happen?" "We're facilitating it. The moths offer something we never could, evolutionary synthesis. They don't just alter you, they bond with you." Jason screamed and ripped the IV from his arm. The man didn't flinch. "You're already bonded. The change is irreversible. You fought it, most don't, but that doesn't mean you're not part of it now." Jason turned to the window. Mara raised a hand, placed it on the glass. He saw his own reflection beside her. His eyes had changed too. Later, they gave him a choice: return to the world above, under monitoring, under silence, or step into the sealed chambers below and finish what had begun. He never answered. But 3 days later, the bed was empty. The security footage showed him walking calmly into the forest at night, shirtless, barefoot, eyes glowing faintly. He did not return. The following spring, hikers reported strange lights in the Black Ridge Basin, floating wings, whispers in a language no one could place, and once, at the edge of a trail, a cocoon the size of a man, still warm, pulsing slowly. Inside, a heartbeat, waiting.
Thank you for listening to this story. Your support means a lot and helps keep these tales coming. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to subscribe and follow for more dark and immersive stories just like this one. New horrors await. Don't miss what's coming next.